Hey, it actually does beep. I didn't know that. Maybe it's the door locked or something like that. Or shut, just in here.
Let's see, where's my...
Okay, so we're live. 6:30. This is the Mashpee Environmental Oversight Committee. It's our meeting, our monthly meeting of October 21st, 2014. It's being held at Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North in Mashpee, Massachusetts. It's 6:30. We have, at this point, we have quorum. I guess we can open the meeting.
Sure.
Okay. Why don't you take a few minutes here just to look over the minutes of the last meeting, and let's see if we can review those and have those approved, and then we'll move into the rest of the agenda.
They look fine to me. When I reviewed them, Jen sent them my email, and I took a look. They look fine. So I'll move that we accept approve the minutes of August 19th.
I'll second that, and we can take a vote.
September 23rd. Get the right date here.
Yeah.
September 23rd.
So I'll second, and all in favor then?
Aye.
Aye. Well, all two of us. Okay. So welcome, Andrew.
Thank you.
Happy to have you with us.
Happy to be here.
Well, in that regard...
And by the way, thank you also for your comments last night. I thought that, and also John's comments.
Yeah.
Yourself, Michael, fantastic job that you did on handling that.
Sewer Commission came through with a couple of its, key members,
Yep.
giving some good testimony.
Yeah, I thought all the testimony was very good, and it received the proper support it deserved, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I'd like to think so, yeah. Although I was certainly nervous, but when I saw a few chairs that I wondered if that was just a suggestion that it wasn't going to be all that controversial. So that was good.
Yep.
We'll talk about that in a minute, but if we could get to new business. Drew went to sign the papers at the clerk's office for the committee, and he was informed that his paperwork has not been completed. So either there still needs to be some kind of an approval, or some approval needs to get down to the clerk's office from the Board of Selectmen's office, indicating that Drew has been approved as a member of the EOC. So,
well, you know what I can do? This upcoming meeting for the selectmen on November 3rd, I'll be in attendance with the selectmen because we're actually looking at a new member coming onto the planning board.
oh, okay.
So pretty similar subject. I think I'll ask them there at that meeting where we stand at
Great.
Okay.
And I'll give John Cahatlin a heads up, just an email, and I'll CC you and
Sure.
George on that, just to let him know that that's going to be coming up, because we just need to make this official here.
Yep. Tonight will just be a guest appearance.
Yeah, Andrew, I don't know if you knew, but at some point in the future, Ted will be leaving us because he's going back to Texas.
Oh, he is.
Yeah. I knew he was selling his
He's going to
home.
be. So we're actually going to be losing. Remember, he said he was going to stay for a while. I can't remember exactly, Jen. What did he say he was going to be for a while? But
yeah, I thought it through the end of the year. I'm not sure now.
which we're rapidly approaching, so like 2 more meetings. And then we're there. Okay, I'll speak to them on November 3rd and see where we can go from there, and at least get some additional feedback.
All right. Find out what the situation is. Yeah, like I said, I'll send an email off to John. I wasn't sure if he was going to be here tonight or not, so I will contact him as well.
I think probably under that's new business. I think under communication, I think we'll probably wouldn't be a bad thing for us to about a day or so before, or maybe by the Friday before our meetings, do a little bit of a roll call for ourselves as to who's attending, just so we know.
You want to handle that? Just
Yeah, I'll handle that one. I know things can happen, but it'd be good to know. And also as a good reminder, especially with the changes in the
Right.
date, it seems to still be catching up. I'll put that onto my on my Outlook for that one.
Okay.
Let's see, if Rick shows up, we can talk a little bit, I guess, on the estuary restoration shellfish program.
There has been some, I don't think all the numbers are back from the pond and estuary, from the PALS program and the water sampling.
Okay,
Pretty sure that, I'll check with George Rickenbacker, but he usually sends out a full set of, charts and stuff for each of the ponds that have been sampled
okay.
in order to provide. But it's always good, too, to have Rick's analysis, too, because, Rick often sees it a little differently. Or he has a greater sense of, the overall picture for these ponds, because he's been doing this for such a long time.
Did George send something out recently regarding?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
And I usually would have had it printed out and brought here, but I don't seem to have it, and it just dawned on me that he had sent it out and I
Right.
hadn't had time to review it.
Yeah.
He mentioned in the email about not being able to have access to Moody Pond because we have a gate in that location off of Back Road. But I wanted to let him know that if he needs access to Moody Pond, we can open the gate and they can drive right up to the pond. So I just want to make
I
that
think the
known.
other issue he was bringing up on that, though, was that now that there's no vehicular access to Moody Pond, that
Or
maybe it's probably not. I mean, it's always been pretty clean and
Right.
pretty relative.
Right, it is isolated
It's
from.
very isolated, so, and now it's even more so. So he was suggesting that maybe we really don't need to be, monitoring it.
Sure. Oh, okay.
Much anymore
Okay.
for that reason. It was even more that than not being able to get access, although it's much easier to drive up.
Sure.
Rick?
Hello, Rick.
That makes sense.
So here's a question for you before we go back up to Rick on the estuary. Do we, in the action items now, do we now drop the fertilizer bylaw? Move it down
No,
into
we'll
old
be
business?
going to that next. There is more stuff to do on that. We're not done with the fertilizer.
Okay,
bylaw.
that's what I wasn't
Yeah.
sure, but.
Yep. I'll tell you.
Okay, we're
when
going to
it
go back
goes.
up to the top. We've approved the minutes. We're at the estuary restoration shellfish. We're waiting for you. So how you doing?
Great. I've had AmeriCorps today working on that very topic out on the water. So, and it's still going well. We're planting quahog seed in Great River from that part of the project. And the oystering opens November 1st. So, and once again, this summer we didn't have any fish kills anywhere, so that's good too. And
Yeah,
scallop
you-
season is much better than it has been recently. Our seed survived much more, so people were able to get a bushel for the first week. 'Cause people can get at least a peck now. People are usually getting about a peck, a quarter of a bushel. So the conditions were good for scallops for some reason. It was a little bit cooler summer, which may have been a factor.
Why is the heat increase what the
Scallops are the most sensitive shellfish, so they could just swim up and be carried up by the tide if it's too hot. And they're the most vulnerable to predation. So that's good.
Just not, I don't know the answer to this one, but I'll ask the question anyway. The fact that we had such a dry summer, is that either good or bad for some of the water bodies? I mean, with less contribution from runoff, how do they do? Does it,
Well, in theory, less runoff would bring in less nutrients in, so you'd have less severe algae blooms, but then again, a lot of it's coming in with groundwater anyway, so I'm not sure if it makes that much difference.
Yeah, a lot of it is coming in from groundwater.
And the other thing that's going on that is that, as you know, we've submitted our comprehensive watershed nitrogen management plan to the state and Cape Cod Commission, and we've got comments back that we're working on from them. They basically liked the plan and had a number of specific questions and more details. They want a lot more details.
What was the name of the plan again?
It is the Comprehensive Watershed Nitrogen Management Plan,
Management plan, that's right.
which at the state level is usually a comprehensive wastewater management plan, but we're being more comprehensive in that we're including everything, stormwater, all the other sources as well. And this is the prime example of the nitrogen bylaw. I mean, we're trying to control the excess nitrogen from fertilizer. So
And we were successful last night, so I don't know
that's
if you
great.
heard, but yeah,
That's great.
It passed. It seemed like it was an overwhelming vote. I was near the front, so I couldn't tell, but somebody else in back said, no, there wasn't very much opposition to it. A lot of good comments. So it was a good night last night. Let's see, no fish kills, that's right, because you explained that kill that was in Walkway Bay was mostly shrimp, and it was really related to
it
something
was shrimp
unrelated
and crab. It was grass shrimp, the little shrimp, and
Yeah,
crabs.
and crabs.
That was it.
The only other fish kill was on Santua, but that was for yellow perch and some kind of spawning disease out of spawning activity. It wasn't related to water quality.
Yeah, we were on the estuaries, but now you're on to the next topic.
Sorry.
Ponds.
Jumped
That's okay. Yeah, that wasn't a mass mortality either. I mean, mass mortality that I'm talking about is all of the species dying in large numbers, but you're talking about one species out of a number of them in the pond. So
Yeah.
Is that suggest it was something besides, bacteria or some kind of nutrient effect?
it probably wasn't a nutrient effect because it was only one species. And Drew, what was the state saying about it? That they thought it was
a result of yellow perch. It was limited to yellow perch, and it was thought to be a disease that came about from their spawning activity. It's typical, they said.
or they're weakened and they something after that.
Yeah,
So-
I can't remember the specific details, but they did attribute it to natural causes, not.
But it wasn't even all the yellow perch in that pond, probably.
No, it was only
Like
probably a small amount of the population, but
Yeah.
noticeable.
I would imagine the population of perch would be pretty,
Yeah.
must be a major species in that
Yeah.
pond.
So on the ponds, we've had the PALS and Mashpee Environmental Coalition summer sampling of the major ponds, and Santuit is the most impacted, but it's still by the Secchi disc clarities, which is a good measure, it's still half of the algae bloom that it was before we put the circulators in. We got a little bit of floating algae at the end of the year in some areas, and that really is. We didn't have it last year, but the Secchi discs that we're doing throughout the pond are a good measure of the entire pond. So, and we have other data as well. So that's working. That's our worst pond, and the solar bees are working.
Always good to hear about that. And George was talking about no longer monitoring Moody Pond, partly because now there's even less accessible. There's really not that much of a need to do so. What do you think about that?
That's
What's access is
Ken Malloy, who's
fixed, but Drew said we can get access by just getting the key and having them open it.
yeah. So the pond and lake monitoring, the PALS ponds and lakes. Stewards sampling that's at least once a year snapshot that we send out for nutrients. And then the Mashpee Environmental Coalition And I work with them too on this. And Ken Malloy is from the Katuitt Waders. He's in that group too. So he samples Moody Pond, and boulders were placed in front of it to limit the access, and he didn't think he could drag his inflatable through there, or it was too much work or something. So he didn't sample that pond this year. The pond is in good shape. So he was, what that was is Ken was questioning whether we should keep sampling it because it's in good shape and the access is more difficult. But that's more of an access problem than anything else. So.
Which we could solve.
Well, as long as they can, I mean, if they can, you mentioned they can't get over the boulders. The boulders can't be moved back and forth. That's, I mean, that's up to DPW if they want to go to that kind of accommodation. But if you can find another watercraft that you can just portage over the boulders and into the water.
Well, he could. I think it was another issue that he needed a second person. And
oh, okay. Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm sure we could accommodate something too.
Yeah, I think we can work that out for next year if we want, if we want to do that. So.
There really is nothing that kind of potentially threatens Moody Pond in terms of water quality that we're certainly aware of there, right?
It's in good shape.
Nothing, so.
Yeah.
And the other ponds are pretty much the same. There hasn't been a lot of change from what you've seen of the data. I don't think I'm not sure if George sent out his chart.
We have all the data. We have the Excel spreadsheets on all of the data. They haven't changed much. That goes up and down, annual variation. There's no big changes that I can see.
All right, time to talk about the fertilizer bylaw.
Go for it.
This morning, obviously the Cape Cod Times got the word out pretty quickly this morning. I got an email from Jonathan Eidman, and he also sent it to Andrew Gottlieb. And basically he reminded us, I mean, I knew that something like this was going to need to be done. But he said, to quote, "Good morning, congratulations on the successful town meeting vote for Mashpee's fertilizer bylaw. Please let me know ASAP when you'd like to return to the commission for approval." So the Cape Cod Commission, since the authority to enact these bylaws comes from the commission, and they have a certain set of guidelines that need to be met, the final step will be the approval of the Cape Cod Commission for the bylaw that was approved. And the next available regularly scheduled meeting of the commission is November 13th, and if you like that date, I'll have to know by next Monday. I've already sent him a return email saying that to go ahead and put us on the agenda for the 13th. I will certainly be available that day at 4 o'clock is the MEC board meeting, but if I have to be late for that, that's fine. I think they usually meet in the afternoon, if I recall. And the next question is, who should be there? that was one of my questions. Who should we have? If one of the selectmen wants to be there, would that help? I mean, is there? So that's really the next thing is just to work out.
That's Thursday, right?
That's a Thursday, right? And my recollection is they meet either late morning or early afternoon is when they start the commission meetings.
But you already have us on the agenda for it, right?
Yes, I've asked him to put us on the agenda, so now it's just a question of, I'm not even sure what the process is, because I'm pretty sure this is the first town bylaw approved under that authorization that came through the Cape-wide fertilizer DCPC that some of us fought hard for about a year ago to get passed, and what I've heard is Barnstable's working on one, and so is Brewster.
Well, why don't we do a reach out to Andrew?
Okay.
He seems to be the most likely candidate on the
Yeah.
selectmen anyway, that we could ask him and he would know the process of what happens now. So
Yeah.
you want me
Well,
to-
I sent him, when I sent the return email, I included Andy in that, Andrew in the email. So I'll stay in touch, because he's already had responded and said, I would say sooner the better. But then I got on a little later on in the afternoon and got back, but it was kind of late in the afternoon by the time I finally was able to respond to that email. So I did not hear, I did not hear back from Jonathan on that. But
Okay, so who was that from the Cape Cod Commission you had to respond to?
Jonathan Eidman is the Chief Regulatory Officer.
How you spell the last one?
IDMAN. He's the one that, because as we were working on the text of our bylaw, I kept him in the loop, knowing that at some point the Cape Cod Commission was going to have to sign off on this. And he actually worked with me to make some adjustments, minor adjustments to the language, incorporate a little bit of additional flexibility in one or two key places, and so actually he's seen obviously the final version that was approved last night at town meeting, and he's happy with it. So that certainly is helpful to have him on board, because he's probably the one who will be, speaking directly to the commission about this on behalf of the staff.
What's the next step after the commission review?
Presumably, once it has been approved, then we can start to talk about implementation.
Okay.
And certainly winter's a good time for me to be thinking about that, and I'm sure we'll be in front of the commission and in front of the Board of Health, and looking at the other aspects of it. I've been keeping people in Falmouth who were involved in their bylaw development in the loop as well, because once this is finally approved, I want to start talking to them about kind of a joint educational program. Find out what they may already be doing there in Falmouth, and then figure out how we can either work directly with them or piggyback on something they've done to get the word out, obviously to the professionals, to the suppliers, and then of course, most importantly, to homeowners, because they are the largest users of.
What are we thinking about,
fertilizer.
or do we have any thoughts on what the implementation date is? Are we targeting something for early next year?
I don't think we set a date in the bylaw, so I would say next spring, because that would be the appropriate time.
We're in the winter doldrums.
Right, we're kind of in the winter doldrums. I mean, I would say as far as, we'll miss any opportunity this year to enforce any aspect of it. The only thing that would really be relevant besides the fertilizer on roadways would be obviously the final date of fertilizer applications, which in our bylaw is October 30th. But, I think for this year, since there's no notice out to anyone, there won't be any enforcement of any kind in any case. So I would say our goal would be to start, March 1st. Because believe it or not, I have actually seen fertilizer trucks out in February, end of February. I saw that once, and I thought, oh, please, I didn't just see that, did I? One of the well-known companies. So, we'll need to start getting the word out to the professionals. I know, for example, obviously, there are a lot of places we can get lists, like in the Cape Cod, obviously the Cape Cod Landscape Association will be one place but I'm also kind of curious about, I'll find out, I've also been keeping people in Orleans in the loop too, because I want to find out if any of them are already enforcing their bylaw, because in their case, they did not need Cape Cod Commission approval. They got the approval through the, when the budget included a rider in it. Basically exempting those two towns and their bylaws from the state act, which preempted local control over fertilizer application.
So,
Andy
in
made
terms
note
of
of that at the meeting last night.
Educational program, when do you think that we would try and roll something out? Do you think we'd be trying to roll something out in February then?
Yeah, I would say January, February. We should probably start thinking about it in January and get something out by February, so they get it in plenty of time to incorporate that into their scheduling for Mashpee. And again, I would like to find out, what's been going on, what they've been doing in Falmouth. I'm not even aware of.
So will the educational program, will that have to be something that comes through the selectmen? I mean, we don't have really like a program on that. I mean,
Well,
would that be something that
we left it kind of, you know, I tried to build in some flexibility in the bylaws to allow Conservation Commission, Board of Health, or the selectmen to be the ones that, you know, it could be done in a variety of ways. And there's no reason why, at least from the educational end, the ELC couldn't, you know, provide at least, you know, some kind of initial notice to professionals and so forth that the bylaw is in place. But obviously, there has to be notice given to homeowners too, because they need to be aware about application dates and you know, the basic performance standards. So there's probably going to need to be some kind of a basic handout that can be made available, some kind of probably online. We should have information available to people through the website. You know, just,
So I'm thinking that if anything involves some sort of dollars or any kind of numbers and stuff, we have no operational budget.
That's
We're just
right.
a committee
That's right.
to the
Right now,
selectmen,
we're
so that
just-
would be the selectmen.
So if
that
we
would-
get to that point, we would have to go to the selectmen and ask for some dollars to maybe do some, you know, basic kind of notifications.
How about that red biplane towing a big banner behind?
People really use the website. You'd be surprised. That's an excellent source.
That can be done
Yeah.
fairly quickly with the software we have for updating the website. It's a pretty simple process.
Did they do the website in WordPress or some form like that, so you can make easy changes to it? That's great.
Absolutely, yeah.
What about, who do we talk to? Would we talk to with the selectmen if we were gonna ask if the town clerk, because the town clerk sends out notifications to anybody who's on their emails. They send out notifications when permits are coming up, when you can stop buying your stickers, all the other things that come along. So the town clerk has some type of email roster. But I think it would probably have to, go through the selectmen to ask them to do that?
That's
I
a
don't
very
know.
good question.
Well, for the town website, you'd first want to go through the town manager's office, which
Yeah.
is also the selectman's office.
And they've been.
You know, that can go right on the homepage. There's a part of news and new items, and it could be right on the homepage, and that, I can't tell you how effective that is. I mean, just when I'm out talking to the public, it's really effective.
Tell you what, I'm gonna be in touch with Tom Mayo on some stuff, otherwise he's, being the assistant. Let me talk with Tom and see what's going on. So I'll take that one on to talk to Tom and see, what do we have available and how can we maybe do something?
Well, tomorrow I'll send out another email too and make sure that Joyce and Tom get it as well, that just, and eventually all the selectmen, to let them know that this hearing on the 13th is the final step in the approval, or at least the permitting or approval process. We hope. I assume is going to be the last step.
Okay.
And then at that point, the next step is going to be, figuring out implementation, timetable, calendar, notifications, education, and the like.
And actually, I think getting there on the November 13th is pretty critical for us, because I just want to make sure that we had this deadline of the end of the year to start with. I want to make sure that we get back to the Cape Cod Commission this year, and I can't remember if they do hold a meeting or they don't hold a meeting in December. There's a lot of committees that won't hold a meeting in December. So I think your November 13th date is probably critical.
Yeah, so I'm definitely on board with that, and like I said, I'll figure out who Jonathan recommends we have there for that, and what's required, what the process is going to be. They're just going to review it and make an up and down vote or something.
I'll try and get in touch with Tom on some other things too, if you want to follow up with Tom.
We should probably also contact, one of the commissioners is actually on the board of the Mashpee Environmental Coalition. We should also contact our own.
Ernie Virgilio.
Yeah, Ernie. And
I'll contact Ernie. I think
All
I
right,
have his
good,
emails.
good,
I think I have
good.
Ernie's.
I don't think I have Ernie's email. Yeah, and just
Could always stop at his house. I pass it every night on the way home. So, I mean, that's the other.
Yeah, just let him know that we'll be in front of the commission, and he voted in favor of the DCBC, so he was already on board. That was a good vote on his part.
So something on the website, there's sections for homeowners and businesses, and if we could distill it down to the key points for those groups on the website, like, don't fertilize in the winter, whatever however you want to put that together, and then put that on the website so that people would get the exact information. That
Yep.
would be a good way to do it.
And then provide them a link to the full
Oh, yeah.
law if they want to see it. And
yeah.
probably eventually we'll have other educational tools that we can develop. We actually have the next column for the Mashpee Environmental Coalition is coming up at the end of this month, and I will probably be writing this one. So we were thinking we would be doing something like pay as you throw, but we may, we'll maybe want to think about the bylaw too, just to let people know what's in it that's been approved, or maybe we should wait until after the Cape Cod Commission gives its final approval.
Well, we'll have to probably wait for them to
Yeah.
do the final approval. The other thing I noticed, and I need to ask Tom this question at the next planning board, but when I go to the website and I call up the bylaws, the bylaw I keep getting is 2010. But through the virtual office, somehow or another, I happen to have the 2013
Oh, really?
one. And it reflects the changes that have been made. So I'm not sure. I'll have to talk to Tom and find out if what I'm looking at on the 2013 is the unofficial, but like updated but unofficial, or if it is the official, if we could get it to the point so that when people call up the bylaws, like if you go to the planning board and you click on the bylaws, it takes you to 2010, but I'm not sure if that's the actual. That's not the one that we
Yeah,
use when we talk with Tom.
I've
in the
also
planning
noticed
board.
that
We
when I
don't
go
use
to
that one
access-
because that one isn't quite up to date, especially like when we were talking about the recent changes and stuff. So with these new changes that have happened with the bylaw, like on the other one, we have two of them that we just went through town warrant last night.
Right.
If we would just use the 2010 one, it wouldn't be reflected. So I don't know where those are. So that's a question.
You may be able, like Conservation Commission has separate links to key documents, the regulations that come up a lot, the mitigation regulation, the waiver requirements.
Yeah.
By the way, when I did go to try to click on the regulations, it sent me to the bylaw itself again. And
Oh, yeah, I
couldn't
noticed
access
that.
the
We're gonna,
regulation. You noticed that
we
too?
have to
Okay,
fix
good.
that.
Yeah,
Yep.
you'll have to fix that, so.
Well, just so, by the
Regulation
way, the
access.
other one, just so you know, sometimes you might have this problem, depending upon where you're at. I had a call come in from Mashpee Enterprise. I was talking with Joff, and he was having a hard time getting to the various layers that are in the GIS. So I asked him the question, where are you trying to access this from? And he was saying, oh, I'm doing it from work. And I said, I had my laptop with me, so because I was working at my desk computer. And I said, well, if I call up on work, I can't call those layers. They won't populate the screen because the filters at work won't allow it to happen.
Yeah.
But when I call it up on my laptop, I see all those filters. So it's interesting. People will say, "Oh, well, his comment was, I don't think it's working." I said, I think it is working. It's just that depending upon what you have.
Yeah.
I had to do some work for the government one time, and I was working on one of these things where it was an interactive, and I kept saying, I'm getting there, I'm clicking, and I'm submitting, and they said, well, are you getting the final statement and everything? And I said, no. And finally, I went online from my laptop and not through my work computer, and one of the first things that comes up is a pop-up, and it says, turn off your pop-up blocker.
Yeah.
But it's a pop-up. So, see, I just,
That happens.
So there's some stuff
That
that
happens too with if you use the Oliver, the Mass GIS
just to,
website.
just to
have
let you
turn
know
off your
that
pop-up
there are
blocker.
times
Oh, yeah.
sometimes when you're looking for something, there are times when you're looking for things that you
Yeah.
can't, certain things won't, depending upon where you're looking from, you won't see them. They're not as transparent. Okay, so we have to find out, I need to find out anyway that on some of the bylaws, where they're going to be, where the most current are posted.
Okay.
Well, they can change that link It's, what you click on there goes to a linked file that they can just change to the updated file.
Yeah.
Yeah, it may be that
That's all
somehow.
that's all it is.
I mean, it's just like, the link on the conservation page to the regulations just goes back to the bylaw. And it's just a matter of making sure that link's been corrected, so it's going to the right file.
It's easy enough to do.
Yeah. Can you actually do that yourself, actually, as well? Oh,
Yeah,
that's
it's
great.
really- It's really user-friendly
That's great.
software.
That's nice, so you can make easy changes yourself. without
Yeah, you
having
can just
to
go
have-
right in and change the link within, minutes. It's pretty easy to update, so it's definitely a good tool. Good
So we
update.
move on to old business?
Yeah, I think we're pretty much done here. So everybody's pretty comfortable with where we're at in terms of what the needs are.
I'll get in touch with Ernie, and I'll check with Tom on some of the things.
And I'll check on Falmouth Orleans, see
We're
what they're
going to
up
follow
to.
with them, and then the other is,
And,
I have to also follow up with Andrew on which one did I say it was?
you want me to do that? Just follow up with him, first find out what he thinks the process, what
Yeah,
what
if
he
you want
thinks
to do
the
that, you're already
process-
in
Yeah, why
touch
don't
with
I
him.
do
If
that?
you want to
Yeah.
take that one, that'd be great, Mike.
All right, why don't I do that one?
I'll find out from Tom what he knows about the bylaw updates and how their postings go.
Great.
And how much lead time between I don't know what the time frame is between when something is voted on at town meeting before it actually makes its way into the public forum, let's say. Combined water sewer, usually John gives us an update on that one, but
Yeah, I haven't heard any new news at all on that.
Andrew, you know anything much on the townwide stormwater management, or is that pretty much is rolled up in the plan that we were just talking about just before, the comprehensive watershid management plan? Is
Rick's
that-
been involved with that a lot.
Yeah, that's stormwater is in that comprehensive
It's
plan.
in that plan.
We've talked about it. The DPW does the town stormwater, and we have the permits, so Catherine Laurent works on that one, so.
Yeah.
We've just incorporated what we have so far, that you're probably aware of.
And it seems like you've been keeping up with all of the requirements, at least from the state level, the federal level as well.
Well, that's Catherine, yeah, that she files that, we have those permits, the NPDES
NPDES,
permits,
yeah.
and she has to file reports, and we do that, and
National
we manage the
Pollution
town, and
Discharge Elimination System, I think.
Yeah.
Ooh, that pulled
Yes.
that one out of
and
somewhere.
I could have told you that one, I know about the.
one thing that I pointed out at the last sewer meeting was that we are actually, we're improving stormwater runoff, the projects that the town is doing. It started a while ago with over at the Herring Run across the street at 130. We put in a vegetated swale, that helps reduce nitrogen. We put in the project down at Mashpee Neck Landing with the federal money that has a big capture area for nitrogen control, and now we're working on reconstruction of the Great River boat ramp with added vegetated area to control runoff. So the town is being proactive on this. That's where that stands as far as that goes.
Also, when they were doing those improvements along Great Neck Road North, I think they
Right.
incorporated some stormwater management.
Whenever they can
components in
fit,
there.
whenever it's possible to do it, we've been incorporating that, and Drew, those go through the Conservation Commission, so
Right.
Drew is well aware of all that,
Yep.
all of those projects.
Overseeing the permitting process of all three of those successfully.
One of the places that I've noticed there are some fairly significant outfall pipes, particularly located on streets where there are homes with a lot of lawns right down to the street edges in New Seabury.
Seabury, yeah.
New Seabury's got a lot of problem with outfall pipes. We forced them to remove one years ago as a mitigation, but that's a drop in the bucket compared to how many there are there.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
Yeah, and that I would think would be something that we might even want to sort of start tackling on sort of as a background.
Is it going to straight out to the ocean? Or
Straight out to the
Right into
bay.
into the embayments and the
Wetlands,
coves and the creek
coves.
areas of New Seabury.
Wetlands, all kinds of,
Safe
really,
pond?
really bad places that shouldn't be. There's one in particular, I use a photo of it on all of my lectures when I'm talking about turf and turf impacts. And it's, what's that street that it's on? But, I have a series of shots of rain pouring down to this grate, and then you go, and the grate goes immediately to an outfall pipe, wetland, right into Papaneset Bay.
Well, some outfall pipes go directly into the water from upland locations. They're ancient. They just never updated. Right now, too, you have all of these areas in New Seabury are association-owned lands now. They're not owned by New Seabury
That's right, that's a good
Corporation anymore.
Yeah.
So they've handed it over to the various associations like Bright Coves and Pompanesset Island,
Fells Pond,
the
Yeah.
Peninsula Council. I think they kind of oversee everybody.
They do.
But so you'd have
That's
to
Mike
approach
Richardson.
the associations
maybe
now.
we start with Mike Richardson,
Yeah.
just because,
He would be the perfect person
He'd
to
be the
start with
perfect
because
person to start with.
he all communication kind of filters out through him.
right, and he would give us a sympathetic ear on this, too,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
We actually mapped all of the street drains in Mashpee a few years ago. I did it with the Senior Environmental Corps and AmeriCorps, and we ended up with over 2,000 storm drains and
Wow.
mapped. And so it's not there. I wouldn't I wouldn't single out New Seabury. There's
Right.
drains all over town.
Yeah.
Sure.
And they go into different areas. Some of them go into, don't go into wetlands. Some do. I've sampled some of them for bacteria when I was doing a lot of work up in the watershed, looking at bacteria contamination for the shellfish beds. And a lot of those, they don't really flow until you get a heavy rain. And then we focused on the ones where we're getting some counts, Meeting House Road. Other places we've controlled that runoff. Route 28, when they repaved it at the Mashpee River, they sent that off into vegetated area. They're not a big problem for, I'm not aware of any that are a problem for bacteria, but nitrogen is another issue.
Yeah, this one I take the photo of, if you go upslope from where that grate is, every home on that street has a very lush, highly managed lawn that goes right to the street edge. So, what I was focusing on was specifically nutrients, because it's such a classic example, and I mean, literally, every flow that goes onto that street will end up in there because it's only a short section of pipe. It's not getting caught anywhere. It's just, it's an elbow, a short section of, concrete drain pipe, and boom, right into wetland, which then goes immediately into the bay. Not even a wet meadow or something to capture it, or retention.
Well, it's going
ponds or
into
something.
wetland or marsh, you're saying, or?
Yeah, but it's actually kind of an open stream, kind of. It's
Oh, okay.
it's kind of, I wouldn't call
So
it
it's
a
not,
ditch.
it's
but
not being intercepted.
It's not
by
being
the marsh.
intercepted. That was the key, is that
Yeah.
it wasn't some point where you could say, oh yeah, this wet meadow, this retention area is capturing it,
Well, the good news over there is that Papaneset Bay flushes 100% a day, so there's probably less impact from that. It would be worse if it was way up in the watershed where there's less flushing, so.
Yeah. So I just thought I'd bring that up because that always struck me as a place where there's no real impetus to do much about it, because it's not a problem that presents itself as a problem, except in a very theoretical sense, nutrient loading.
Land steward program? Updates?
Yeah. I can finally give you an update on the land stewards program.
We've been waiting for this.
We're currently at 37 members. Most of them are what we refer to as, we have two different categories of volunteers. You can be active or passive or both. but passive volunteers walk the parcels at least 4 times a year and submit a parcel observation form, which we set up online. We have a whole page dedicated to the Land Stewards Program, so people can sign up for the program online and they can submit their parcel reports online, and it goes directly to our email. So it's easy to get signed up, and all the information about the program is on the website. And like I was saying earlier, most of the volunteers are passive. They're mostly retirees, and so they walk the parcels and keep us informed about what's going on there. Most of them walk it many more times than just 4 times a year, so we'll hear from them quite a bit throughout the year. So it's good to get eyes and ears out there to let us know what's going on. And I try to host at least 3 or 4 volunteer events each year to do trail maintenance, and we see some of the active volunteers show up to assist. I usually have AmeriCorps on board with a lot of those projects as well. So always looking to get greater volunteer turnout. It's always a challenge, but we've had pretty consistent volunteer effort
We
throughout.
signed up and we hardly ever get a chance to get out there. It's terrible.
But it's working. It's good just to have this kind of network of people, whether they're just observing or they're actually helping out or they're doing both. The one program that kind of started with the Land Stewards Program and then kind of took off over the last 3 years. This past year was year 3, is the herring monitoring program, where I've been able to. A lot of people who sign up for the Land Stewards Program, they hear about the herring count, which basically goes from late February to the end of June, where we have volunteers stationed at given locations on herring runs and conduct counts to get an estimate of the size of the run each year. And we do that at all 3 locations. And last year we had 27. We started out with like 4 or 5, and it's gone up every year. So it's probably the most popular volunteer activity under the stewardship program right now. So we're getting a lot of good data on the size of the runs and the condition of the runs. And we send that to the APCC each year, and then they work with Division of Marine Fisheries to crunch the numbers and see what the population is looking like. There's still a moratorium on the herring, but I've been hearing that each town is kind of able to make up its own mind at this point if they, if they consider their runs to be pretty healthy. I don't know of any on the Cape that have released the moratorium, not to my knowledge.
It would have to be done, it's just the state that does that.
The state does it, but they've indicated that towns can, propose that. They'd have to go through Marine Fisheries, but they seem to be indicating that some towns
Well,
are.
the moratorium is statewide as it stands right now.
Right.
But it is up, it's a 3-year term, and it's upcoming, is it next year it's up?
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean, when the next
When it's
moratorium
up,
is up,
then
that this is,
you
I've
could
just heard it through the grapevine that this is what, Marine Fisheries is considering, letting towns decide what they want to do in terms of still restricting herring or allowing their, even if it's on a limited basis. I don't know for sure.
So our runs, I've heard, have gotten, as far as I know, understand it, they've gotten better this year. We had more fish. Is that
Each one.
what your numbers are showing? Or?
Yep, the numbers have gone up. I think the Quashnet is one where the numbers haven't gone up as much as Mashpee and Santuit, but that could be a condition of the fish ladder, which is something I wanted to mention in the discussion part of the meeting. I can update you on that. So yeah, the stewardship program is moving along, and
You don't have
We're-
help anymore on that, right? You used to have
no,
a
we don't.
AmeriCorps volunteer one day a week that's
Yes.
helping with that?
Yeah.
So
So
is
we might.
that just you and Cynthia as well?
Yeah.
Boy, you guys have a lot of work.
But I think it's it's certainly helped us take some of the work off, some of the workload, especially with just letting us know what's going on so we can respond to it quickly. And
Be out there all the time, monitoring, which you could never do.
yeah. And I just had 3 people sign up over the last 2 weeks, because we put posters on the kiosks that AmeriCorps made, and there's a kiosk at every one of our larger, more accessible conservation parcels. So it's a way to get the word out there, and people see it. and can go right to the website and sign up. So both making it easy to sign up, I think, has increased the volunteer response.
In regard to the lands, the pollinator garden, the Mashpee Garden Club's taking care of the ones at the community garden.
Yep.
I just got some photos of that one. Was there someone who was working on the ones at J.U. Pond?
Yeah, there is. It's actually, I think it's some other members of the garden club and some members of Webner as well. They're actually part of the Mashpee National Wildlife Friends Group.
Yeah.
Mary Kay is one of them.
And she helped to plant that, too.
Yeah, exactly. So they've been assisting as well. But I think we can, next year, I've already had some inquiries from land stewards who are, willing to do that job as well, to do basic weeding and maintaining and.
Well, maybe at some point, if you want to do that, let me know, and maybe we can do like a little 1 day, 1 hour or 2 hour training or something too, for people who want to take care of those pollinator gardens. And at the same time, maybe we can bring in. We got a lot of leftover plugs from our work, so we might be able to donate some.
Oh, that'd be good, yeah, because there was some minor loss of some shrubs that didn't make it. That's expected.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we can find areas.
You could do some donations to fill some of those gaps too, because, and there's a lot of, like I said, we get access to some hard to find native stuff like Baptisia tinctoria, the wild yellow indigo, and some native grass, but also other things. We get lupins sometimes.
Sure.
When we can get them.
Yep.
Good luck. We plant 6, maybe 1 will make it. And some other, native stuff that
Sure.
be good to incorporate. At least in those ones, in the community garden, we have more flexibility because we decided we were going to do non-natives there as well.
Right. Yeah, it looks great. The garden club's done an amazing job maintaining that garden.
Kept it looking nice.
Yep. The same thing with Jehu. Jehu looks really good. Pickerel
Yeah.
Cove needs a little more effort.
I've been driving by and saying, "Oh, do I want to go in and take a look? Maybe I don't want to see." We helped to get those done, so get those installed. So
I don't have much on the Pilgrim Nuclear. I haven't seen too much in the paper lately. Anything? Haven't seen anything
the
happening.
court case that's going on, the 4 grandmothers. It was just discussion today about testimony by Dan Wolf.
And on FEMA flood, I don't know if we want to keep that into the old business or if we just want to keep that down. If it comes up in discussion, what do you think?
Well, it's just a reminder that issue is there, but it does seem like it has kind of reached a point where there isn't a real impending doom. But we've already, we're working with a client now that they've actually redesigned their house based on where the, new FEMA, flood line is, not the flood line, but the velocity line. And so that's going to be, we're certainly not done with that, but I think it's probably good to just keep it there, or not. I don't know.
We can keep it there for right now and stuff. I'm ready to fall on my sword because I come back up for renewal in April, so I can only dread to see what it is that they're going to ask me to do now.
Mm-hmm. Well, it might be good to try to get some information from people who are actually having to deal with the implications of this.
Anything on correspondence?
Except for the one from Jonathan Eidman, which we've already covered.
Covered there. Jonathan, you said you had something on discussion? You wanted to bring in?
Yes, there was, just to let you know that we're engaged with the consulting firm. This is the Conservation Commission and DPW. Town of Mashpee is engaged with Tigan Bond consultants to seek out grant opportunities to restore the fish ladder at Johns Pond, the Questionet Fish Run. And we'll be working with Marine Fisheries if there is a opportunity to do some grant funding for a feasibility of the or assessment of the current structure and some design ideas. And right now, the structure that's in place it's being undermined. I don't know if you've been out there, but the erosion on the stream side channel is pretty severe on both sides. There was some erosion control put in way back when with nylon netting, and that's all becoming exposed on the embankment, and then it's just sediment erosion on the
Is
other
this
side.
John's Pond?
This is Johns Pond, where the Quashnet River comes out of the fish ladder. And the fish ladder itself, I think, is just undersized for the run. Every time I've been out there to do maintenance, which is quite a bit, you continuously see herring backed up in the river, usually by the hundreds, if not thousands. So the ladder needs to be assessed. It had a phase 1 safety inspection done, and it was deemed a minimal hazard by the Office of Dam Safety, but that's because it abuts a few hundred acres of conservation land, and there's no immediate development downstream if it were to fail. However, there were a lot of deficiencies about erosion and seepage, it being undermined, and what to do about the pond side as well, because you've got some kind of mixed mesh retaining wall / boulders on the upstream channel, which is just continuously falling apart and filling in with sand. There's not much you can do about the sand at the top of the ladder. That's just a condition of the prevailing winds and the result of having a man-made channel to the northern end of a pond. So that problem's never really going to go away, but there are other deficiencies that need to be fixed. So we're having Tag and Bond seek out grant opportunities from Coastal Zone Management, their climate change, coastal resiliency grant, I believe it's called, and Mass Environmental Trust has a grant opportunity. Department of Ecological Restoration as well. So any grant opportunity out there that that this can qualify for, we're having them take advantage
What's
of it.
the status of the fish ladder at Santuit Pond?
The issues with that design get resolved, or?
Well, yeah, there were some. We had them take a whole second look at it and try to assess what the problem was, and it basically came down, in layman's terms, to a turbulence issue in the pools. They may not be deep enough, but it could be a result of unusual high flows this past spring coming out and into the summer coming out of Santua Pond. So there's no question it was not operating as anticipated. It resulted in some extremely large backups, but there was no accounts of any mass die-off or marine fisheries was out there several times. I was out there several times. So eventually the herring made it into the pond, just not at the same frequency that they did under the previous ladder.
Is there anything that can be done to mitigate the issue?
Well, yeah, they had tried couple of different scenarios, adding a wooden weir to the top, which helped reduce the turbulence, and then stacking up pre-cut concrete bricks on either side of the weir walls to increase the depth of the pool in each pool. And unfortunately, that got put in kind of at the end of the run, so you couldn't really have a full test of what it's like during the.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see next year and see what. And if other work, more significant work, needs to be done, then that's what needs to be done. So it's a wait and see at this point.
Is there anything that we can do at the EOC to help with this process at all? The grant process or anything?
For the Johns Pond ladder?
Johns Pond ladder.
Yeah, absolutely. Letters of support. A letter of support actually would be a good thing for some of these upcoming grants. They always like to get letters of support. The good thing about this too is there's a lot of stakeholders involved. There's a lot of potential partners because Johns Pond, Quashnet Woods is part of the Mashpee National Wildlife Refuge, which is a partnership refuge of state, federal, tribal, local land trusts, and the Falmouth Rod and Gun Club, the town of Mashpee, and the town of Falmouth. So when you're applying for a grant and you got that many partners, that makes the eligibility, your chances of getting it are increased dramatically with that many partners and letters of support from each one of them. So.
But a letter from the Board of Selectmen, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have
What
they've
about the planning board? Does it count coming through the planning board, would that count for?
I don't think it could hurt. I think it would be, yeah, absolutely. We've already submitted letters for the CZM because that deadline was fast approaching, and the Board of Selectmen did submit a letter of support for that. Concom did, as well as some of the partners too. It was last minute notice,
Yeah.
a couple of days to get them in, so, but we were able to get, I think, like 4 or 5 letters of support for that grant, so.
Okay, well, just keep me posted. If something can come from the planning board, you just let me know, and we
Yeah.
can make that happen.
Okay. Absolutely, yeah. I know there will be other,
We can draft
Grant
up one here from
opportunities.
the EOC too. That would
Sure.
be, that would be something. we could
yeah,
draft.
absolutely, yeah. Mashpee
Even if you,
Environmental Coalition.
even if you felt
Yeah,
like
might be
you,
environmental coalition,
Yeah,
of course.
that would be another good one.
do we know anybody on that group?
Yeah, possibly. Do you have any kind of can you send some kind of a draft letter of one example?
Yeah, absolutely. We have one that was actually sent to us by Tig and Bond that has
Oh,
a
perfect.
template language that you can
Perfect.
kind of edit out,
If you
know.
could do that, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll send that.
Yeah, send it to the whole bunch of us, yeah.
If you send it to me and to Jen, then we can send it on to Tom, and then Tom can pass it along to us, and we can get it to the planning board for our review. Yeah.
Okay.
When's our next planning board? Next 2 weeks? No, yeah, 2 weeks, because we're at the end of the month.
Good.
November 5th.
Yep. So,
I have one other item to bring up that just wanted to consider it as an action item possibly for to be added now that the fertilizer bylaw is winding down, hopefully. This is something I've been discussing with Stephen Moan, and I think, Rick, you've probably been involved from time to time, is coming up with a revised, or I guess a new harbor management plan for the town of Mashpee. We have a lot of ACEC areas, areas of critical environmental concern, such as Hamlin Pond, Jehu Pond, and sections of Great River and Wacoya Bay, where you've got a lot of, from the Concom's perspective, you've got a lot of people who have different situations out there where they have docks that are grandfathered before the ACEC designation. Other people have 10A floats that were licensed out over time, and other people who have illegal docks, and it's I think there's a lot of activity that happens in these ACEC areas, and if we want to really be serious about promoting the regrowth of eelgrass, that there should be some sort of comprehensive harbor management plan put in place. It
And
can
the harbor
include
master,
it.
it's not like he's on board with this.
Yeah, he and I have both agreed that this is something that, we need to, and I know there was one drafted, but I don't think it was ever put in place. And it's kind of a way, because from a permitting perspective, it can be kind of difficult to, defend the proposal of a structure in an ACEC when the ACEC is going, 30, 40, 50 feet landward, and it's for the protection of eelgrass, and it's not even covering those areas. So a harbor management plan will kind of, shift that ACEC responsibility over to the town to make sure they do the right things to still protect what the ACEC protects, but making allowances or quotas, on numbers of moorings or numbers of docks in a given water body, what kind of activities take place there, those kinds of things.
So
I
you
think.
would be able to use this plan as a means to kind of create more flexibility in the ACEC.
Yeah, yeah.
We have maybe this is what you're referring to, we have a municipal harbor management plan and coastal resources management plan from 1990 that we've been working under from, and I'm not, that could be, that should be updated.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah,
that's
sure.
That's the one mechanism.
Yeah, it sounds like the same thing that I'm talking about. It's,
But there's also an ACEC management plan that you can do. As it stands right now, docks are prohibited in the ACEC.
right,
But
exactly.
having a harbor management plan wouldn't change that. You have to have an ACEC management plan to change that
Right.
designate, that part of it. But what you're describing, the situation could be, the situation you're describing could be managed within the regular harbor management plan.
I think I would like to pursue the ACEC management plan too, because right now we have a situation with so many different residents, if you will, that it's making life very difficult for the commission to enforce an ACEC. We actually have an ACEC regulation in our bylaw under Chapter 172, and this needs to be sorted out because people aren't being held to the same standards. So
That's going to be a lot of work.
it is going to be a lot of work, but it's worth it.
Because it's going to involve not just us, but Falmouth, Webner.
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't have any extra time to work on things, but if we
Well,
have
it
to
could be
do
a
it, we have to do it.
collaborative.
You have to be collaborative. And
yeah.
Probably need to maybe try to get some funding.
We're just finishing the drafts of our comprehensive watershed nitrogen management plan, and that was a ton of work, so.
Sure.
Yeah, a few weeks.
Yeah. Well, so much for vacation time.
Well, we can think about that one and get back to you. We can talk more about that as it comes up on that one, Andrew.
Sure.
It's but like you say, we've been looking for, what would be some things to begin to take on.
Right.
EOC.
Right,
So,
and that's why I brought it up, is, something that's been talked about, and, something that could use more discussion.
Pretty good. I want to try and catch some dinner. I want to try and catch the World Series. Unless we have anything that's really pressing, can we get a adjournment?
Move we adjourn.
I second it.
All in favor?
Okay.
Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen.
Very good. We got to get you on this committee permanently.